For weeks, Iran was on fire with massive protests, the kind of thing we haven't seen in years. And as the world watched, really everyone was asking the same thing. Is this time different? So let's dive into the analysis and see what made this particular moment feel so incredibly critical.
And just to give you a sense of the stakes here, check out this quote from the Wall Street Journal. This isn't just about a protest, right? This is framing it as a potential turning point with honestly earth-shaking global consequences. It really doesn't get much bigger than that.
So what in the world sparked this massive firestorm? To really figure out if this was a true revolutionary moment, we've got to look at the triggers. What was it that drove so many people to pour into the streets?
And the scale? The scale was just staggering. We are not talking about some small, isolated protest in the capital. Nope. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people rising up across all 31 of Iran's provinces. This was a truly nationwide movement, a clear sign of this deep, widespread anger that was touching every single corner of the country.
A huge piece of that anger, it was economic. It was about the money. While the protests grew to be about a lot of things, they were really ignited by a single crushing reality, an inflation rate of 42%. You know, when the cost of just living skyrockets like that, it puts this immense pressure on everybody, and it basically creates the perfect storm for unrest.
Okay, so why did this moment feel so different from other uprisings we've seen in Iran before? Well, the analysis we're looking at really pinpoints three very specific, very unique factors that set this whole situation apart. Let's break them down.
So, the three key factors are these. First, you've got the unpredictable role of the U.S. president at the time, which just added this whole new layer of external pressure. Second, there was a feeling, a perception, of a weakened Iranian military, which hinted at some internal vulnerability. And third, and this is a big one, this was, at its heart, an economic uprising, which totally changed the nature of the game.
So first up, the Trump factor. The U.S. president's public statements and his, let's say, unpredictable style created a whole new kind of pressure. The Ayatollah and the regime, they just didn't know what the U.S. might do. And analysts were looking at past U.S. involvement in places like Venezuela and Nigeria, seeing a possible precedent for action that kept the Iranian regime completely on edge.
Second, there was this perception of military weakness. The analysis points to this specific event called Operation Midnight Hammer. Now, this operation reportedly exposed some major weaknesses in Iran's defenses. It put them on the back foot and created this idea, both inside Iran and out, that its intelligence and military forces weren't quite the powerhouse everyone thought they were.
And that brings us to the third and maybe the most important point. Unlike a lot of previous protests that were really focused on human rights, this one started in the bazaars, in the markets. Now, why is that so significant? Because the merchant class, the shopkeepers, they were historically a pillar of support for the regime. So when they hit the streets, it sent a powerful message. This wasn't some ideological fringe group. This was a widespread economic uprising, a sign that the system was failing pretty much everyone. Now, with all this pressure mounting from every direction, you know the Iranian regime wasn't going to stay quiet. And what happened next was this very direct, very public war of words between the leaders in Tehran and Washington.
And the language being used, wow, it was incredibly sharp. On one side, you have President Trump giving this very stark warning. You better not start shooting because we'll start shooting too. And on the other side, you have Ayatollah Khamenei firing right back, calling the protesters vandals, and predicting that Trump, just like other world tyrants, would eventually be brought down. This was a seriously high-stakes standoff playing out for the entire world to see.
So all of this intense pressure, all this conflict, it all leads to one massive question. What would actually happen if the regime fell? What would come next? So the analysis started to explore some of the potential and highly uncertain future scenarios.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. The collapse of a regime that's been in power for almost half a century, it wouldn't just change Iran. It would send massive shockwaves across the entire Middle East. So what were the possibilities people were talking about? Well, the analysis laid out a few key outcomes. One was a really dangerous power vacuum. Iran has these proxy forces, groups it supports all over the region. Who would control them? Another idea was a transitional government, with figures like the former prince, Pahlavi, showing interest. But a contact on the ground suggested that what the Iranian people themselves really want might be something else entirely. Free and fair elections, a real vote. And at the end of the day, that is the crucial question, isn't it? While the rest of the world is debating geopolitics and power vacuums, this whole thing brings us back to the most fundamental point. After decades of authoritarian rule, with the economy in shambles and society just erupting, what kind of future do the people of Iran actually want for themselves? That's the question at the very heart of it all.